I guess recording is not starting. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Saida Saika Bukhari. I did my MS in International Relations from International Islamic University with A grade. And after my MS, I joined International Islamic University as a visiting lecturer. And I have been working as a visiting lecturer from last 4 years in different government universities. And along with that, I'm also associated with different think tanks as a research associate and assistant editor. Along with that, I'm also additionally I am writing opinion-based articles which are published at national and international newspaper related to the current affairs. And furthermore, I have 3 research publications. Two at the international journal, one is at the national journal, and today and lastly, I currently secure admission in PhD in the University of Vienna, Austria. Today, I'm going to deliver a lecture on A-level history course, and the topic that I'm going to pick is Cold War. I'm going to share my screen with you in order to have a better understanding about the this one. Okay. Cold War, which was started from 1945 till 1991. Before starting towards the Cold War, it is quite necessary to understand the World War One time period and the World War Two time period. World War One was fought from 1914 till 1919, and after the World War One, all the world powers they sat together and they basically wanted to create a league or an organization which stops states from using from initiating any crisis situation, and they created in 1919 League of Nations. But League of Nations was not successful to stop the world powers to start a World War II. So World War II was started in 1939. It was ended in 1945 when United States of America launched nuclear weapons over Japan and to two different cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. After the World War II, all the world powers they sat together and they made a United Nations organization in order to create peace and stability. So all the Western countries, all the countries of the world countries, they joined United Nations organization, and Western countries they said that to the world countries that they are now focusing on their internal developments rather than indulge in any third nuclear war or a world war. So ultimately, there were two powers left. One was USSR, another was USA, United States of America. Ultimately, both the blocks of both the powers have two different ideologies. They started a war, which is known as Cold War, over ideological differences. USA wanted to spread capitalism throughout the world. On the other hand, USSR wanted to spread communism throughout the world. What is the difference between capitalism and the communism? Basically, when the power is in the hand of a central government, each and everything, economy, resources, whatever you earn, whatever you are importing, whatever you are basically whatever you're earning through exports, whatever you have, all the things should be under the control of a government. That is known as communism. On the other hand, there was a second ideology which was known as capitalism, and capitalism is basically that all the economy, all the business should be privately owned. Government should not control economic affairs, economic resources of the public. So what happened? These two blocks they start fighting with one another. Why this is known as a Cold War? Because during the Cold War there was no direct clash between these two blocks. So each block trying to increase their sphere of influence, by different of means, by initiating proxy wars, by supporting those movements who are in support of their ideology, who are in support of, basically they basically wanted to increase this sphere of influence throughout the world. So what happened that people were very much they have this in their mind, they were very much fearful that a third World War III war might be started between these two blocks, because these two blocks have different ideologies. Ultimately, what happened that they start making alliances to protect themselves. Alliances mean agreement, cooperation with the major powers in order to save their security, in order to save themselves. So, result consequently, what happened? There were two blocks. There were two military organizations were established. One was known as NATO, which is still in the practical form. Another was known as Warsaw, and for the NATO was established in 1949, and it was particularly the bloc of Western European countries, and the Canada, United States. And they created this organization in order to eliminate. They basically wanted to stop spread of communism throughout the world through NATO alliance. NATO basically is a military alliance in which all the states they gave some sort of money to this alliance, and they sent some sort of their forces over there, and they have a combined you can say that a combined security net provider, in which threat to any state who is member of NATO will be considered threat to all, and all the state parties who are part of the NATO will come into front and assist that state. On the opposite side, in reaction to the NATO, USSR established Warsaw. That pact was signed in 1955 roundabout, and this was basically you can say that military alliance, and it was run by the USSR, and it was also known as this Warsaw Pact was signed between those powers who were having communist ideologies in their countries, who were in support of communist ideology. So it was considered as a counter towards the NATO. Um, Along with that, United States of America they established different military alliance in order to spread their sphere of influence throughout the different regions of the world. The first agreement that they signed, which is known as C2, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, which was signed in 1954, and Pakistan was also part of this treaty. And the second alliance was CENTO, which is also known as Baghdad Pact, and which is known as Central Treaty Organization, and it was signed in 1955, particularly with the Middle Eastern countries, and Pakistan was also part of this organization. Pakistan, soon after its independence, Pakistan joined the bloc of USA during the Cold War, and they tilted more towards the United States strategy, so they joined these two blocs. I already discussed that during the Cold War, there was no direct conflict between the blocs. So there was always have an indirect clash. In that indirect clash, number of proxy wars. Proxy war is that within a country there are two blocks, two groups, those who are fighting with one another, and and the third powers like United States they supported one group, and the USSR supported the other group, and they backed them through financial means, through military means, through economic means, in order to achieve their objective, and their objective was to have their sphere of influence in that country. So a number of multiple proxy wars were fought between these two blocs. The leading one was the Korean War, which was fought from 1950 to 1953 on the Korean area, North Korea and South Korea, both trying to increase their sphere of influence, and they were indulged in proxy wars. They were indulged in direct war in this country. The second one was the Vietnam War, which was the longest. You can say data a prolonged war, a time period of 1960 to 1970, and this was the longest war. And in that war, there is a huge distance between America and Vietnam, and it was during that war America invested huge money over this war, and ultimately badly affect their economy and military industry as well. So ultimately, after 1970s, the 1979, both signed friendly agreements with one another in order to stop the emergence of any further proxy war in order to focus on their economy. The third one was the Afghan War, which was started from 1979 to 1989, in which Pakistan was also part of that war. United States of America used Pakistan's territory, Pakistan's people. They trained mujahideen, they sent mujahideen into Afghanistan, and on the other hand, USSR trying to had their influence in Afghanistan. So, in order to eliminate the spread of communism in Afghanistan, United States supported Pakistan. During the Cold War period, number of issues were happened. One was a Cuban Missile Crisis, in which, because of the misperception over the both the sides, ultimately led towards a nuclear crisis between the USA and USSR. I will discuss this in detail in the next lecture. This one is quite brief lecture regarding the Cold War. Along with the Cuban Missile Crisis, after that, both the signed different bilateral and multilateral agreements. Bilateral agreements are those agreements which was directly signed between USA and USSR. On the other hand, multilateral agreements were those agreements in which the number of parties were more than two. And the third one is they're also trying to stop nuclear arm race between these two blocks in order to stop the chances of nuclear holocaust or nuclear war between these two countries. So they signed different arms control related treaties, in which one is very the leading one, which is still in practical form. That is nuclear non-proliferation treaty, which was signed in 1969, and it is still now is in effect, and is particularly make it clear to the world that nuclear weapons should be eliminated from the world in order to create peace and stability. And we will also discuss the current affairs, the current status of these two states, how they are behaving, and after the Cold War, when in 1989 the Afghan War was ended. After that war, during this war period, USSR invest hugely in terms of economic means. Ultimately, what happened that it was became one reason behind the disintegration of USSR, and USSR were disintegrated in 1991. And in 1991, Cold War was ended, and America emerged as a hegemon country or a superpower of the world. And till now, America is considering itself as a superpower, but there are other powers like China, like Russia. They are emerging as a challenge towards their hegemony, which they will challenge in the next few years. Thank you. That's it from my side. That's the introductory lecture. If I hope I delivered whatever I have talked about. It, it's very much clear in your mind. If you have any question regarding this, or regarding my style of presentation, regarding my anything, if you need, you can ask. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.